Alright, we got the fenders off now, and that really opens up a lot of space in there for what we're going to do later. Only thing really left to do on the back here is we'll have to disconnect the brake springs, and that's the only thing other than the bolts that shares a connection between the transmission and the engine at this point. So I think what we're going to do next, since we don't have anything to lift the starter off yet, is we're going to finish disconnecting the radiator and take that off. Now the radiator is held, it's on top here, there's a little support, and for some reason this side's held on with a pin and a cotter pin. This side's got nut and bolt, but we're going to take those little arms off, disconnect the hose, and then we'll be disconnecting the hose at the bottom as well since it's drained. And then for mounting it, there's, I believe, 8 screws on the bottom. I see 8. It looks like this one's broken off on here though. And then once we get that all taken care of, we can take this radiator and the oil cooler to the radiator shop to get the cores checked out and all that good stuff. So before I take the actual radiator off, I'm going to disconnect the oil cooler lines. Usually there'd be a fitting running through here, through the front of the radiator to the oil cooler, but since I already took that off, they're just hanging out there. I would like to get those off so we don't damage them by accident. So to start removing the radiator, I'm going to remove the hose clamp on this boot that goes from the intake. No, it goes from the engine block to the top side of the radiator. And that's on there pretty good from being clamped for so long. I'm going to leave that for now, just kind of as my last point of contact to kind of hold it up while I undo those screws underneath, because it's giving just enough to hold it down, but not too much where it would, if the whole radiator would start to fall, where it would break any of the other castings. Next, I'm going to remove the upper support, starting with the cotter pin. I believe this is supposed to be held on with 2 hex head bolts, but for some reason there is a cotter pin on one side and a hex head bolt on the other. Like I said, the guy who worked on this before me, I won't say very good, but decent painter, not much of a mechanic. But then again, neither am I. We have the 1/2 inch nut and bolt and lock washer on this side. Again, the paint on the fasteners not making life easy. loosen them up at the manifold here. That one's loose. This one's still not coming. Next I'm going to undo the two screws holding on the lower manifold to the radiator. Also with a heavy coat of paint on them. Okay. Worries me when fasteners are on that tight to something that could leak. It makes me think that something was leaking. And this guy's solution was to just start cranking the bolts down tighter. Which is not how you fix that. Next up, I'm going to undo all the screws from the bottom of the radiator support. And then the radiator should be free to go. And then I think after that, since I'm down here, the next thing I'll do after that is drain the oil. Once we drain the oil, we can open the crankcase panels and take a look inside while we're at it too. Alright, so we got the radiator off, no problem. And I have to take a closer look at this, see if there's a screw snapped off in the bottom of the radiator or if they just forgot to put it in, but I don't want to flip it over right now. So when we look at the radiator on the front side, obviously lots of oil-soaked wasps from the oil cooler leaking, but on the back side I do see a little bit of coolant dampness. Looks like coolant and oil mixed maybe, but leads me to believe that we do have a little leak. I can see a little bit on the blades there, and it's kind of far back to be coming from the oil cooler, so it looks like they might have to do some repair on this radiator as well as the oil cooler. Well, it looks a lot different than it did when we started, and I think that's where I'm going to quit for today. Maybe tomorrow or the day after I'll go under there, drain the oil, and actually take a look inside the crankcase, because I haven't done that since I bought it. Kind of see what it looks like down there, just how bad it really is. Or maybe it's good. Found a few other missing nuts and bolts along the way, so we got some little things to take care of, but we're just going to make sure it's all in tip-top shape. It's all in tip-top shape for next year, since there's plenty of time to work on it this year. See you next time, everybody.